Okay, hi guys. This is my Q&A video about my language learning experience. I'm learning Korean and Chinese at the moment, and I just wanted to share with you a couple of some top tips, basically what my progress has been so far, how long I've been learning languages, my motivations, kind of things like that. Because what I plan to do with my channel in the future is kind of show my language learning process with the two languages that I'm learning. Currently, I'm learning Korean and I'm learning Chinese. Um, so that answers the first question, because my first question was, what languages are you learning? So yeah, I'm learning Korean and learning Chinese. They're both Asian languages, which are very difficult for a native English speaker to learn, but that's why I enjoy learning them, because I feel like it's quite a big challenge and it's a bit different. And so the second question is, how long have you studied the languages that you are learning? So I started learning Korean probably about over 3 years ago now. The thing with Korean, it wasn't really, I wasn't constantly studying, so I started learning that time. I learned the basics like Hangul, the basic phrases. I did study pretty intensely, but it wasn't very consistent for short periods of time, but it wasn't very consistent. So actually, I'd say my Korean is not at a particularly high level for the amount of time that I've been studying. That's what I think anyway. As for Chinese, I started learning um, 2 years ago, August 2, yeah, so actually it is almost exactly 2 years now. Um, I started learning when I went to study abroad in Hong Kong, and I took a couple of classes. That's what really sparked my interest. And then I think probably around a year ago is when I started studying really very seriously. Like, I had a good routine. I wasn't just taking classes. Like, I do recommend classes, but what I'm saying is that I was taking 2 or 3 lessons per week, which if you really are very serious about getting fluent in a language, actually, I don't think that level of study is actually enough. So I'd say I started seriously studying Chinese just over a year ago. Yep. And the third question is, why did you start learning languages? Um, so my reasons for each language is a bit different. Like, as you may know, there's a lot of people who study Korean because they're interested in K-pop, and yes, that was me. And I used to be very interested in Korean drama and culture and Korean music, and so that sparked my interest in learning the language because I wanted to understand the music, and I was interested in traveling to Korea, and I thought, oh, um, if I learn the language, I think it will deepen my experience quite a lot. And then, so that was the reason I started learning Korean. And at that time, it wasn't that serious because I was just studying because I was interested in Korean culture. But then gradually, as I started to learn more and more, actually, it developed my interest in the language learning process a lot more. And so these days, I don't study Korean. Actually, I'm not that interested in Korea, K-pop, and K-drama that much these days. I think from that, it kind of helped me develop my innate interest in the language itself, rather. So now, my motivation for learning languages because I want to connect with the people. I just really enjoy the language learning process. Like, here you can see the development, and you can see the improvement in your communication with people, and I just really enjoy that process. As for Chinese, the reason I started learning Chinese is because when I went to study abroad in Hong Kong, actually I was more interested in learning Korean at that time, or actually Cantonese. As you know, in Hong Kong they speak Cantonese, but despite being in a Hong Kong university, they didn't actually offer any Cantonese classes, and unfortunately they also didn't offer any Korean classes, so I was like, oh, I've got these credits I need to take. What can I do? I want to learn a language. So I took Mandarin, and now. I'm very grateful for that because I think if I'd studied purely Korean, I would have missed out a big opportunity with Chinese because Chinese is really great and are far more useful than, no offense to Korean learners, but far more useful than Korean and far more useful than Cantonese, I'd say, because most of the Cantonese speaking population can speak Mandarin. So that's the reason I started learning Chinese, is because there wasn't any Cantonese or Korean courses in my school. But yeah, and then the fourth question is, how do you stay motivated learning languages? Um, I think it's just part of my personality. Like, if I set myself a goal, I am very driven to achieve it. Like, I feel like even if there's no purpose in the goal anymore, I've told myself I'm gonna do it, so I have to finish it. And it's kind of a big hurdle when thinking about something like languages. Like, it's not a small task, but I enjoy the process, and every small victory just keeps motivating me. So every time I can communicate with someone better, I can help someone who is struggling communicating. I can use my language to help people. Um, the way I stay motivated is just like, I feel like what I'm doing is kind of beneficial to me. It's quite an interesting thing, and I enjoy it. So, if you're struggling staying motivated learning languages, I think you should maybe just reassess what your priorities are. Maybe learning languages isn't something that you necessarily need to do, but at the same time, I think you just need to keep yourself studying. If you know it's something you definitely want to do, to keep yourself studying, you need to make it a part of your routine in your daily life, and also just clear your daily life of things that you find unnecessary and prioritize language learning. Yeah, I know it's easier said than done, but that's the basic advice I would give for now. I might go into more detail later in a different video, or maybe even later in this video. I can't remember what the other questions were. Oh yeah, okay, actually, it's kind of relevant. Which one? Is this the fifth question? Yes. The fifth question is, what do you hope to do with the languages if you learned in the future? Um, okay, so I'm really interested in living in Asia, so learning Korean and Chinese is kind of a means to an end, so I can achieve that goal. Additionally, because my major in university is civil engineering, and because of the rapid development in China, I think it's quite a useful language to learn. Like, I think Chinese would be a useful language to learn for any kind of field that you are working in, but I think it's particularly relevant to my field, and particularly because I want to work in developing countries. So China has um, relations with developing countries, like in Africa. They have relations with Pakistan, these kind of things. A lot of investment comes from China, and I just think whether I want to work in China or whether I want to work in some other developing countries, I think Chinese in that sense will be really useful either way. And as for Korean, I love Korea. I hope to travel there more. I've been there a couple of times already. Yeah, I enjoy talking to Korean people. I just think it's a culture I want to explore more, and I think the best way to do that is through the language. And so that's what I hope to do with that, just learn more and understand more about the culture. And yeah, perhaps I'm interested in living in Korea for a period of time. I just see there's so many places I want to live, so I just think learning languages helps me keep my options open and makes the experience a lot easier, the transitional experience more easier. So that's what I hope to do in the future with it. So this is more like logistical stuff. So what study materials do you use? Um, it's really changed a lot over the few years that I've been studying languages. So for Korean, I'll start off with Korean because I think it's more conventional. For Korean, I just use Talk to Me in Korean, and I've used a couple of textbooks. Um, the Yonsei textbooks I would recommend. Um, I will probably do a video on the Korean materials that I use, but I just try and find resources. I'm not the kind of person to buy a lot of textbooks because I don't really have enough money to buy a lot of textbooks, but there's so many really good resources online, and to be honest, Talk to Me in Korean is really um, inclusive of all kinds of topics and everything, all the grammar you could possibly need. So to be honest, I think you could go very far with just using Talk to Me in Korean. These days, what I'm using quite a lot is the Yagi series. So they're just podcasts, and how I use that, I just listen to it first without reading the script. Try and understand, see how much I can understand, write down a few words that I try and hear but I don't understand, and then the second time I will listen to it again reading the script, just let it go all the way through, and then highlight any words that I don't understand, and then before going on to the third time I will try and look up those words, try and go through the script one more time, this much slower, sentence by sentence, and try and fully understand everything. And then after that, the fourth time, I know so many times, the fourth time I will go through and then any grammar kind of stuff that I don't really understand, but I'm not that like completely familiar with that I want to start to develop to be able to use with my own speaking or writing. I will write those down separately and then create sample sentences. Like, I know the process sounds so long, and it is. I'm not gonna lie, so long. And to be honest, I don't do this very religiously. But this is what if I had a perfect study schedule, this is what I would do. It's what I've done a couple of times, and it's pretty useful. Yeah, that's how I would use those kind of resources. But in terms of Korean, the most important thing is to find Korean friends. Yeah, and that's how I've learnt Chinese. But for Chinese, my learning process was a bit different. I've taken classes in Chinese. So I took level 1 and level 2 Chinese in Hong Kong, and then I went to a Chinese language school for 2 months, and there I was living with a Chinese family. They didn't speak any English, so that really pushed me to learn Chinese very rapidly, and I was taking 4 hours of classes per day, one-on-one classes. So that was a language school, which was, to be honest, that was the most useful thing I've done, I think. But I'm not gonna lie, it was pretty expensive. So if you don't have that kind of opportunity, that doesn't mean you cannot learn languages. So after I came back from China, I didn't want to lose my Chinese, so I was studying, but with books and blah 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 blah. But then I applied to work in a Chinese tea shop, and then my manager's Chinese and my colleagues are Chinese. A lot of the customers are Chinese. So because I already had a sufficient level in the Chinese, I think it was okay for me to work there, and I was able to improve my Chinese quite a lot. But yeah, if you're unable to find a job kind of thing, just find language exchange friends. There's a lot of resources on the internet. I'll probably do a video recommending the kind of websites and apps that are pretty good for language exchange. And then, so I didn't want to go too much into the resources I use, just to give you an overall idea. But if anyone's interested in the kind of resources I use for Chinese, specifically for Chinese or specifically for Korean, if you're learning any of those languages, yeah, please ask me and then I will do another video a bit later. Anyway, what is the 7th question? What level would you consider yourself in the languages that you are learning? It really depends, because there's just so many different levels. Like when you talk to somebody, you'll be like, oh, you're such a you're really good. It must be like immediate, intermediate, upper advanced, but and then you speak to someone else, and then you're like, I know nothing, kind of thing. Um, but on the general scale of things, I feel a lot more confident with my Chinese than I do with my Korean, and I think it's because I've used it a lot more. I've had a lot more opportunities to speak Chinese with people than I have with Korean. But saying that, my reading in Korean is probably a little better than my Chinese. Um, just because of the fact that I'm not like super intensively studying Hanzi. And so for Chinese, I would say I am upper intermediate going on advanced. Because I've taken the HSK4 exam and I passed, and then I tried to take HSK5 a year ago. I didn't pass. Um, but the HSK4 and the HSK exams are a bit focused on reading, and that's and my reading for Chinese is very poor, but my speaking is quite good and my listening is quite good. My writing is nothing. Like I can't write at all. So yeah, that's the problem with trying to determine a level for yourself with Chinese, is because there's so many different aspects and they're so totally not related. So for speaking, I'd say I'm getting on in upper and intermediate advanced. Reading, intermediate, yeah, and then writing like probably come back to beginner, not good at all. Korean, I would say I'm lower middle intermediate. Like I know a lot of grammar, and to be honest, I know a lot of words, but I can't use it, and then I have no confidence. So, hopefully through the videos I make on this channel, I'm gonna like be able to share with you my experience of how I improve, and hopefully by the end, maybe after a year or something, my Korean speaking will have improved a lot, and I can share some videos with you guys. Oh, and then question A. Oh, this was supposed to be question 9. Anyway, question 9. How much do you study? Okay, so this is a question when I watch people's language learning videos. This is the question I'm most interested in, other than how do you study. How much I study really depends on the day. I'm trying at the moment to, so I go to work at around in the afternoon. So usually in the morning before work, I will go into the library and try and get in like 2 or 3 hours of study there. That's normally for Korean at the moment. Actually, Chinese I don't study at all. These days I'm just working in my shop. I just absorb as much Chinese as I possibly can. At the end of the day, I have a list of the words that I've searched on the dictionary. So I'm kind of very actively studying, but you can't really determine how many hours I'm studying, because I'm just like, if someone talks to me, is that studying? Like, I don't know. So I just pick up words here and there, and then at the end of the day, I will just look at the dictionary, because my dictionary saves all the words that I've searched throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, I will write them down in my book and then try and review them by putting them into Memrise. And then throughout the day, whether I'm just like waiting for the tube or like waiting for the bus or something, or just bored at work or something, I will like just use my Memrise to review all the words I've learnt. So it's kind of hard to determine how much I study, but sit down study time normally for Korean at the moment it's like 2 to 3 hours per day, and Chinese is nothing. But before, when I was preparing for HSK5, I used to study around 4 hours of Chinese per day. And you have to consider that that time was my summer holiday. During the time when I'm in university, I would study half an hour in the morning Chinese every day, because I didn't have enough time. I was really busy with uni stuff, but I just tried to make sure I had that routine, that I was still like maintaining my Chinese and like trying to top up a little bit per day. But it really depends how much exposure you have to the language. Like if you have friends that speak the language that you are learning, it's kind of hard to determine how much you're studying. But yeah, sit down study time, 3 hours Korean, 4 hours Chinese when I was preparing for exam, and half an hour for when I'm busy. So yeah. Okay, so I just realised I didn't have any kind of outro to what I previously recorded. So yeah, basically to sum up, in future videos I hope to like actually show some of my language ability. So I'm going to do some videos in Korean, some videos in Chinese. Hopefully I'm gonna do some videos with my language exchange friends so you can actually see how well I can communicate. I think that would be a little bit more natural than me just like going on a random spiel by myself. And so yeah, I can't think of anything else that I need to say. Yeah, so over the next couple of months, maybe next year, hopefully I'll be able to see my own progress. Hopefully that'll be interesting for a couple of you if any of you are interested in learning languages and maybe motivating kind of thing. Yeah, so I just want to make the kind of videos that I would be interested in watching. So how good methods for learning languages, being able to be inspired by people's progress, that kind of thing. Yeah, so see you next time. Ciao.